This is a Spaulders.
Hello? What is that?
To learn how to make it, stay tuned.
Yeah. What he said.
What up, fam? Welcome to Skill Tree, where we learn how to do just about everything. Today I am looking to further level up my leather crafting skills by making this badass leather Spaulders you see before you. I made it to level 3 in my last leather crafting video, which was actually my first video here on Skill Tree, in which I learned to make leather bracers. If you have yet to watch it, I highly recommend you give it a look, as it goes into way more detail on some of the basic leatherworking concepts that I just kind of glance over in this video. The link for that should be up here somewhere and also in the description below. Also in the description, I have added timestamps to every one of the steps for your convenience, so you can jump around as you need to. Okay, with all that out of the way, let's level up this skill. Step 1, getting started. Alright, so first things first, we need to make a template for this bad boy. To do this, I first assess where I would like it to fall on my body, and how long and wide each plate should be. So the shape of these and where they fall and how many you have is way more art than science. You'd either use your imagination or go on Pinterest or something and see what other people have done as far as the layout's concerned. Once I had my measurements down, I folded a piece of paper in half and drew half of the design I had in mind using half of the width I measured. This way, when I cut it out, it ended up being perfectly symmetrical. So in my design, these top 2 plates are the same size and these bottom 3 are the same. That means that technically I only really had to cut out 2 templates. But I opted to make all of them so I could tape it together and try it on. And I'm super glad I did, because the first one I cut out, these were way too short. They like came up to here. Just one of those things you don't realize until it's actually sitting on you, that you're like, oh no, that would be funny looking. Anyway, once you're happy with your templates, trace them onto your leather. Try to be strategic about your placements to save as much leather as possible for future projects. Now, using a sharp knife, carefully cut your plates out. Remember, a dull knife is way more dangerous than a sharp one. So stay safe and replace those blades often. Cool, with your plates all set free, it's time for Step 2, tooling the leather. So I'll be using a wing divider to make a border, but if you don't have one, a simple ruler and really any pointy object will get the same job done. Dampen the leather evenly to soften it and make your desired marks. Next, cut those marks using a swivel knife. Make sure to keep this sharp too and hone your blade between uses. Shallowly slice along the lines that you laid out for yourself. So I got myself a couple of new tools for this project. The first you're going to be seeing is this nifty edge beveler. Simply run it across the edge and bam! That edge is beveled. Thus the name, Edge Beveler. Moving on, make those freshly beveled edges pretty by wetting them and using the slicker to smooth them out. Now, to make our edge design stick out, we'll use our old friend the beveler stamp. I'm getting a lot of mileage from the word bevel today. Moisten the leather, then simply run it along the inside edge of your cut, hammering as you go. This adds depth and separates the edge from the background. Now I'm going to add this gravelly moon-looking stamp for a little added texture. I totally dig this lizard skin texture this thing creates. After the main edge was done, I went back in and lightly added more to feather out the design. You of course don't have to copy this exactly. Little tiny designs like that just add a little character to the piece and really should reflect whatever you like. So get creative here, carve something interesting in, or whatever, have fun. That's really the point of all of this, isn't it? Moving on, Step 3, shaping the leather. Alright, with your design in place, it's time to get that leather the shape that you want it to be in. First, I submerge the plates into hot water. See those bubbles? That's caused by water entering the pores of the leather. Once the leather dries, those pores will be tighter and thus the leather will be harder. Just wait for the bubbles to stop before taking the leather out. Then, place the leather in the shape you want it to stay in once dry. Here I put the smaller pieces in a cup so it maintains that rounded shape. Once everything is in shape, let it sit to dry. So for these top 2 plates, I decided to try out a new technique called wet forming. While still moist, I pulled and shaped the leather to better fit my shoulder, using my thumb to round out the inside where the shoulder will sit. The top took on a pretty nice rounded shape. I then used a ball in the next plate down to round out the top edge a bit. Now, with these 2 complementary shapes, the 2 pieces slide against each other easily. So I'm not gonna lie to you, I was quite proud of myself for that little innovation there. Look at that. That works great. Really should stretch before I pat myself in the back like that. I'm gonna pull something. It also cuts a pretty smooth shape. And as you can see, once dried out, they maintain their shape nicely. Step 4. Dyeing the leather. You're going to want to throw some gloves on, as you are made out of living leather, and leather dye is a pain to get out. Really hard. For this project, I'm using a saddle tan and medium brown dye. I started with the saddle tan, spreading it evenly with a dauber. Then I removed the excess and buffed the plate. Don't forget to stain the back and the edges. Right away this starts to look cool. Now I went back over it with the medium brown, ensuring it went deep into the areas that I stamped. Once wiped away, the color is richer and the tooling pops more, thanks to the darker colors staying in the indentations. I topped the whole thing off using leather balm with atom wax. This stuff protects the leather and adds a little bit of shine. Simply apply the balm, then immediately wipe it away. Finally, buff the leather until evenly shiny. Keep in mind this will mellow out the color a little bit, but the final product is well worth it. For the last little bit of finish work before it all comes together, we need to get our edges looking right. To do this, I'll be using gum tragicant. I said it right the first time this time. Very proud of myself. Run it along your edges and use your slicker to achieve a smooth, shiny edge. Step 5. Putting it all together. In order to get the movement I wanted, I opted to connect the plates with leather strapping. I began by marking the top plate and using my favorite new tool, the rotary punch, to make a hole. I love this thing. It's easy to change the hole size and it's super easy to use. Yes, you are my new favorite leather crafting tool. To make our connections, we will be using these rapid rivets, aptly named because they go together rapidly. Just put the post through the pieces of leather you want connected, then add the cap. Now, using the recommended anvil and striker, pound that little sucker into place. And voila! Riveted. It's riveting, isn't it? I'm just rife with dad jokes today. It's terrible. Connect your leather strapping to the top plate. Then measure and mark your next plate and attach that to the strap as well. Continually in this process, I suggest you try the piece on to assess where the next connection should be. The corners here on the second plate actually ended up wanting to sit way higher than I would have guessed if I just eyeballed it due to the way it sits on my body. So take your time and try it on often. Mark your placement and punch the requisite holes to make your connections. Before adding the top caps to the rivets, try it on and make sure you like it. You can always cut longer straps at this point. Once you're happy, add the rivet caps and lock them in place. Now lay out the 3 arm plates to figure out how you want them spaced. Then punch holes in the top corners. I opted here to tie them in with a single strap per side. This looks super clean and ended up being crazy flexible. I have full range of motion in this murder machine. It's nice. Now lay out how you want the 2 sections to come together and connect them in the same way. In retrospect, I should have made this strap a little bit longer and just used it to connect the 2 pieces together. It would have eliminated 2 rivets and, looked a little cleaner. That being said, with the way they overlap, nobody will ever know. Just me. I'll always know. Anyways, it's time to add in this little ring assembly for the straps. For these, I just cut out these interesting shapes, tooling and dyeing them to match the armor. These fold around the rings like so and hold them in place. I then connected both of them to the top plate with a single rivet to allow them to swivel. Step 6. Making straps. To construct these straps, I bought some 3/4 inch strips from Tandy, along with a couple of buckles and keepers. Prep your strips and dye them to match your overall color theme. Once that's all set, it's time to add the hardware. Notice when you fold the leather over the buckle, the little prong inside gets trapped. To set the little guy free, we need to cut a notch along the bend of the leather. So there are these oblong cutting tools that get the job done in one go, but I blew my tool budget on the other little goodies that you saw. No matter, I found that by punching 2 holes at the ends of where you need the notch, and drawing lines to connect the 2, I could easily cut out the desired shape. Now that buckle can work as a buckle should. There's always another way. Now moisten the leather at the bend and give it a few good whacks to make the radius tight. Then place the hardware where you want them and lock them in with rivets. Thread the strap through a ring to measure it for length. Then just trim it to size and lock it in place with a couple of rivets. Now add a strap to the other ring and measure it for size as well. Make sure you cut it a bit long to accommodate for thick clothing or layers of winter blubber. Not judging, just saying. Maybe you get like beefy huge too. I don't know. Now I punched holes at 1-inch increments, ending up with a pretty professional looking belt, if I do say so myself. Finally, I punched 2 holes in the bottom plate and added an additional strap that I constructed in the same way. Just smaller. Alright, so full disclosure, this was not the project I was expecting to do this week. A part for the project that I was originally working on was back-ordered, and I had to scramble like mad to figure out what to do. Finally landing on this. That left me with only 2 days to get the project done and filmed and edited, and usually I take a good long portion of time to try to research and figure out how I'm going to do this thing. All that being said, I could not be happier that this happened. This project was equal parts art project and engineering puzzle. In the very limited amount of time I had to put this together, I was unable to find any tutorials on how to do the little strapping inside or anything. Just about every tutorial I found actually puts all the plates together with rivets. So they'd rivet the bottom to the top here and then here. And while that looks cool and works, I was worried that it wouldn't give me the flexibility that I wanted. All that to say that for most of the construction phase, I was just flying by the seat of my pants. And by some magic, it turned out so much better than I even thought it would. It's comfortable and beautiful, to me at least. I mean, all parents think their kids are the cutest, right? But still, this project was so much fun to work on and just kind of lose myself in. I'm very happy with it. If this episode made you very happy or mildly entertained, why don't you give me a thumbs up and let me know. Also, consider subscribing so you know when I release new content. Finally, if you have any skills you want me to cover, leave them in the comments and I will add it to the list. Alright, well I better go. A caravan hired me to protect him from bandits. In the meantime, keep leveling up, you.